Legs movements, rhythmic movements,
Posture movement.
movements, and voluntary movements, right? So its contribution to the reflex and rhythmic movements was direct, so it can directly coordinate these type of movements, but its involvement in the postural movement and voluntary movement is only actually in the form of collaboration or let's say coordination. Okay, so the centers are in the cerebral cortex or in the brainstem. They send the information to the spinal cord, then the spinal cord actually can implement the motor command or it can perform the action. Okay, so the center, the deciding center is located higher, above the spinal cord, in the brainstem or in the cerebellum for postural movements and voluntary movements, right? So we have seen that in the brainstem we have reticular formation involving movement. We have two different areas, pontine reticular formation, medullary reticular formation. They were actually involved in postural movements. Remember that pontine reticular spinal tract was activated, was excitatory. So it caused contraction of the axial musculature, proximal part of the body, proximal muscles of the limbs, right? Like the arm and legs, right? But medullary one was inhibitory. So we have two centers in the reticular formation directly involved in the postural movements, right? We had also red nucleus in the midbrain. Remember?
Yeah.
So from the red nucleus we had rubrospinal tract, which causes flexion in the upper limb, right? Flexion, so flexion of the elbow, the wrist, and fingers. So rubrospinal tract has a flexor bias. We had also corticospinal tract originating from the motor cortex, all parts, primary, premotor, supplementary, and also from the somatosensory areas, right? Then the corticospinal tract comes down through the internal capsule, brainstem, spinal cord, and then it causes activation of the muscles by way of the anterior motor neurons in the spinal cord. So we have different descending pathways from the cortex and brains. Now, we're going to talk about the cerebellum. Okay? Actually, you know that the cerebellum doesn't have any direct connection with the muscles. Okay? So, no neuron from the cerebellum goes to the anterior motor neurons of the spinal cord in order to activate any movement. So, it's not directly involved in the movement. Okay? So, it generates a loop between the motor centers and the spinal cord. So, if we consider the centers, motor centers, like cortex, reticular formation, red nucleus, vestibular nuclei, all, okay? Then the centers send information to the ventral cord, right? And the spinal cord, ventral cord activates muscles. But cerebellum generates a loop between the center, right? So it receives information from the center and also from the sensory information from the dorsal cord. Then it sends the information back to the centers. So there is a loop between the motor centers and the cerebellum. The cerebellum receives information, analyzes information, and then sends them back to the centers. So there is no direct involvement of the cerebellum in the activation of the ventral cord neurons to generate contraction in the muscle. Okay, so the cerebellum makes a loop with the centers. The same also applies for the basal ganglia. Okay, so basal ganglia also have a loop with the centers. Okay, so today, in the first session, we will see these. Okay, so the action of these loops. So, it has long been, the cerebellum has long been called a silent area of the brain. Silent area. Why? Because electrical stimulation in this area doesn't cause any movement. Okay? So, stimulation causes no conscious sensation, no motor movement. Sometimes, only in rare occasions, there may be some movement. So it's different from the motor cortex, primary motor cortex. Electrical stimulation in the motor cortex causes overt movement. You can see the movement. So if the stimulation happens in the head area, in the face area, you will see movement in the face. If you stimulate the hand area, you will see movement in the hand. If you stimulate, for example, the leg area of the primary motor cortex, you will see movement in the leg. Right? But the stimulation in the cerebral cortex doesn't cause any movement. But if you remove the cerebellum, if there is any damage in the cerebellum, what happens? Coordination of motor movements is lost. Then movements are not coordinated. Okay? But there is no paralysis. If you remove the primary motor cortex, then the patient will have paralysis. In the acute phase, flaccid paralysis, you bring the hand off, release it, okay? The patient's hand fall down, okay? So it's paralyzed arm, okay, when you remove motor cortex. But if you remove the cerebellum, there is no paralysis, right? Or no loss of sensation. And there is no problem with understanding the nature of the task. Okay? So all of this happens when you remove the primary motor cortex. But the only thing that happens is that coordination of the movements is lost, especially for rapid movements. Okay? So this way, by this observation, we can conclude that the cerebellum probably influences movements by modifying the activity pattern of upper motor neurons. Upper motor neurons is from the centers. Motor cortex, red nucleus, reticular formation, so all of these are upper motor neurons. Lower motor neuron is alpha motor neuron. Yeah. Right? So we can say that the cerebellum modifies the activity of the upper motor.
So yes, silent area, can you repeat again? Silent area.
Silent area, yeah. Because there is no movement or sensation as a result of the stimulation here. In the past, scientists called this area silent. Okay, no activity can be seen here. They didn't know the function of the cerebellum. So that's why they called them silent area. Okay? So, based on this, we can say that the motor functions of the cerebellum include these: timing of motor activities, rapid and smooth progression from one muscle movement to the next. So when you have sequence of movements, the cerebellum helps to go smoothly and rapidly from one movement to the next one. So the sequence of movements looks smooth and actually rapid, okay? So the other function is that the cerebellum helps control the intensity of the muscle contraction, especially when the muscle load changes. So intensity of the contraction, intensity of the movement is controlled by the cerebellum. Actually, they are all controlled by the motor cortex, but the cerebellum helps the cerebral cortex to do this. Okay? For all of this, timing, progression, intensity, and also the interplay between the agonist and antagonist. So we see all of this today. Okay? So to do this, the cerebellum receives continuously updated information about the desired sequence of motor contraction and the status of each part of the body. So, cerebellum receives information from the cortex, so it's informed about what the cortex is going to do. Okay? So the desired function is known by the cerebellum. Then, it also receives information from the body. So the cerebellum knows that what's going on in the body. Right? So it knows the desired function and the actual function. Then it compares these two. If there is any problem in these two, I mean if there is any discrepancy or any deviation from the desired function, then it sends corrective signals back to the cerebral cortex. So the cerebral cortex actually is helped by the cerebellum in order to make some corrections into the motor movement. Okay? So let's see. The cerebellum compares the actual movements with the intended movements. Then it sends corrective signals back to the motor system. These signals are instantaneous and subconscious. So we are not aware of these signals. Okay?
Actual and intended, which one is desired movements?
What?
Between the actual movements and the intended movements.
Yeah.
Which one is desired movement?
Which one? Intended.
Intended?
Yeah. Intended movement is the desired movement. Right? So the corrective signals from the cerebellum increase or decrease the level of activation in the specific muscles. So, did you get the whole scheme? I mean, the whole image of the function of the cerebellum? So it receives information from the cortex. It knows that the cortex wants to do this, for example. Then it receives feedback, sensory feedback from the muscles, skin, joints. So it knows that the function is going on in the body, and it knows the course of the action. So then it compares these two versions of the information. Then it sends corrective signals back to the motor cortex in order to help in the planning of the movements. I mean, both for the next movement or the ongoing movement. If the movement is going slowly, it can send the corrective signals to correct the same movement. If the movement is very fast and there is no time for the correction of the movement, then the information can be used for the planning of the next movement. Okay, so this is the function of the cerebellum. So, this way the cerebellum aids the cerebral cortex in planning of the next sequential movement. So that's why it's important for a smooth progression from one movement to the next. It has also critical role in learning of movements. So if there is any error in the movement, right, the cerebellum learns to correct the movement, right? So, if the movement doesn't occur exactly as intended, the cerebral circuit learns to make a stronger or weaker movement the next time. So now let's see the mechanism for this. So these were actually some general functions about the cerebellum, right? Let's see the anatomy of the, a brief look at the anatomy of the cerebellum, and then we'll get back to the function. Okay? So you know that it has three lobes: anterior lobe, posterior lobe, floccular nodular. You know this from the
Yes.
Another divisions of the cerebellum is like this. The vermis located in the midline, right? Then we have lateral hemispheres. We have the hemispheres that has two parts: intermediate zone and lateral zone, right? We have also the floccular nodular lobe here. Part of the floccular nodular lobe is in the vermis, right? So the nodular part is in the vermis. The floccular node part is here. So we have floccular nodular lobe, vermis, intermediate zone, lateral zone, right? You are familiar with this. Now, the functional divisions based on the connections. So,
Sir, how cerebellum is involved in learning? Learning is cerebellum is involved in learning.
cerebrum. Yes, cerebrum is involved in learning. So we have different types of learning. Learning physiology, learning mathematics, learning history, learning swimming. Right? So different types of learning happen. Some of them happen in the cerebrum, some of them happens in the cerebellum.
Sir, you know,
So some of the learning involve for schemes, for movement. For these, the cerebellum is very important. If you remove the cerebellum, usually you cannot learn fast movements, rapid movements, okay?
sir, it just sends the information for learning or it is involved in learning.
Yeah, it's involved in the learning. So it's part of the circuit, okay? So now you know that every part of the CNS is connected with every other part. So you should consider this whole CNS as a network or as several networks. So the cerebellum is part of this network. Another part is the basal ganglia, another part is the spinal cord, another part is the cortex. So they are all connected together and they do the functions together.
It means whole brain is involved in learning.
Yeah. But we can say that some areas are more specifically involved in some functions. Okay? So cerebellum is more specifically involved in motor learning. It doesn't mean that the cerebellum is not involved. It doesn't mean that the spinal cord is not involved. No, all of them are involved, but the cerebellum is very important for this. Okay, I mean, the main circuits are located in the cerebellum. Okay, so let's go on. So, functionally, we can divide the cerebellum into three different parts: vestibular cerebellum, spinal cerebellum, cerebral cerebellum. Again, you know this, right? Vestibular cerebellum is connected with the vestibular apparatus and vestibular nuclei. Where are they located?
In the pons.
In the pons,
And
junction between the pons and the medulla, right? So, you can see that here, loculonodular lobe is also called vestibular cerebellum. It's connected with the vestibular nuclei. So we have four different vestibular nuclei: lateral, medial, and inferior. Okay. So this is the vestibular part. Spinal cerebellum is the vermis and the intermediate zone. The nuclei associated with this area include fastigial nucleus, which is connected to the vermis, and interposed nuclei, globus and temporica, right? We call them collectively interposed nuclei. They are connected with the intermediate zone. So we call this spinal cerebellum. So they have connections with the spinal cord. And the cerebral cerebellum is the lateral, which is connected to the dentate nucleus. Dentate nucleus is larger than all of other nuclei, right? So, the brief look at the anatomy of the spinal cord, at the cerebellum. Now, let's see the topographical representation of the body in the cerebral cortex. So you know that in the motor cortex we have a motor map of the body. Remember? Legs located between the hemisphere, face located laterally.
Most lateral.
The right side were important for the movements.
Left side.
The left side of the body, right? And vice versa. So we have a map in the cerebral cortex. We also have a map in the premotor cortex. Another map in the supplementary motor area. Which one is more precise? Map in the primary motor cortex, right? And we have also another map, for example, in the red nucleus. I didn't talk about that. Okay? So we have a special type of motor map in the red nucleus. And also another map in the reticular formation. So not all part of the reticular formation are involved in all movements of the body. Some areas are more important, for example, for the neck. Other areas are important for the trunk. Other areas of the reticular formation are important, for example, for the proximal muscles of the legs. Okay, so there is a special map for the reticular formation, special map in the red nucleus, special map in the motor cortex, right? So, we have also another special map of the body in the cerebellum. You can see that the axial muscles, the neck, the trunk, are represented in the vermis, right? The limbs and the face are represented in the intermediate zone. And we have two maps. One in the anterior lobe, another one in the posterior, right? But we don't have any map of the body in the lateral zone of the cerebellum. So we have two maps of the body in the cerebellum. Axial muscles are represented in the vermis. Limbs, arms and legs, and the face are represented in the intermediate zone. There is no map of the body in the lateral zone. Okay. I told you that in the cerebral cortex, if you stimulate, for example, the face area, you will see movements in the face. Stimulation in the arm area causes movement in the arm. If you stimulate the right side, you will see movement on the left. Right? But what about the cerebellum? I told you, if you stimulate the map, there will be no movement. So, why do we have this?
Because it is connected to red nucleus and other things.
Exactly. So, when we have, for example, a face area here, it means that it receives information from the face area of the cerebral cortex, face area of the red nucleus. For example, we don't have any face area in the reticular formation, so this part is not connected to the reticular formation. Okay? And another thing is that I told you that the cerebellum receives sensory information from the body in order to compare the actual movement with the intended movement, right? So the face area receives information from the face, right? The truncal area in the vermis receives information from the truncal part of the body, the muscles, right? The limbs areas receive information from the arms and legs. So these maps, okay, are connected with their respective maps in the cerebral cortex, red nucleus, and other motor centers, and also to the corresponding areas of the body. So they receive sensory information, motor information. Then they compare these two, right? Did you get this? So, for example, if this one is the right leg, okay, it receives information from the left side of the cerebellum, from the leg area of the red nucleus, right, and from the right leg of the body. Sensory information, motor information, right? Okay, so now let's see the input pathways to the cerebellum. You know that the main input to the cerebellum is coming from the cortex. Each area of the map is connected with a special area in the cerebellum. So, let's see them. Fibers from the frontal cortex, M1, PM, SMA. Remember? Primary motor, premotor, supplementary motor. And from the parietal cortex. So the sensory area 1, 2, Brodmann area 5, 7. Right? So they send the information first to the pons, pontine nuclei. Then from the pontine nuclei, information go to the opposite side, right? Through the middle cerebellar peduncle to the cerebral cortex and the deep nucleus. Right? Mainly they go to the lateral area of the cerebellum. So the cortex is mainly involved or mainly connected to the lateral area, especially those fibers that come from the premotor and supplementary motor. Right? Okay? So, I will mention about this later. So now let's see these. There are also some sensory information from the spinal cord and the vestibular nuclei to the cerebellum. So they are ipsilateral through the inferior cerebral peduncle We have also reticular formation signals to the cerebellum. And also we have some fibers coming from the inferior olive. They also contralateral. The inferior olive can be activated by the reticulus, basal ganglia, reticular formation, and so on. So you can see that the input profile to the cerebellum is somehow complex. But generally you can say that any part of the brain which is involved in movement has some input to the cerebellum. Primary motor, premotor, supplementary motor, somatosensory area, they are all involved in movement, right? So they send information to the cerebellum. Reticular formation is involved in movement. They send some information to the cerebellum. Red nucleus is involved in movement, right? So they also send information to the cerebellum. And sensory information from the body, especially the proprioceptive information, from muscle spindle, joint capsules, receptors, I don't know, Golgi tendon organs, all of them send the information to the brain. But some of the information also go to the cerebellum.
Spinocerebellar tract.
Yeah, spinal information, spinal cord information, right? So all of them go to the cerebellum. Okay? So here again, you can see that fibers from the cortex go to the pontine nuclei, they go to the cell. Inferior olive, sent to the cell. External tunate nucleus. Again, dorsal nucleus of Clark. You remember that?
Yes, yes.
It's located at the base of the dorsal horn along the CA to L2. Right? So, another figure that shows the spinal cord connection with the cerebellum. So, from the muscle and joints, muscle spindles, Golgi tendon organs, joint receptors, they send information to the Clark nucleus. From Clark, you have dorsal spinal cerebellum tract, right? It goes to the cerebellum through the inferior cerebellar peduncle. And we have also ventral spinal cerebellar tract, right? It actually receives information from the anterior horn. So ventral horn is connected to the muscles. So you know that fibers come from the corticospinal tract, supraspinal tract, and also internal pattern generators to the anterior horn neurons. From here, some of the relay neurons send back the information to the cerebellum through the ventral spinal cerebellar tract and the superior cerebellar peduncle. They go to the cell. Yep. Question? Yes.
The information sending where the ventral spinal cerebellum is the motor information? Or the
Yeah, they are motor information. But actually, this is the final version of the motor information that reaches the ventral horn of the spinal. Okay, so imagine the ventral horn. We have alpha motor neurons, gamma motor neurons. Right? Alpha motor neurons are connected to the muscles. What information reaches here? Corticospinal tract, supraspinal, reticulospinal, vestibulospinal, right? They also receive information from the muscles, reflexes, right? Stretch reflex, I don't know, GTO reflex, withdrawal reflex, all of them come here. And we have also some internal generator, some internal pattern generator. Actually, I didn't talk about that. So we have some pattern generators in the spinal cord that cause rhythmic movements, like walking. So they are actually located here. We call them intrinsic networks, okay? So all of these pathways, descending pattern generators, sensory and reflexive patterns, all of them come to the anterior motor neurons. So the version of the information which reaches here is different from the version of the information that started from the brain. Okay? The cerebellum should know about the final version of the information. So maybe you have a motor command from the cerebral cortex. It comes down through the spinal cord here, but there are also other pathways that come here. So they change the motor command, right? So the cerebellum should know also about the changes that happen here. So this is the efference copy. So we call this efference copy, or the final version of the motor information that reaches the ventral cord. So from here, information goes through the ventral, spinocerebellar tract. They go to the cerebellum. So the cerebellum knows the final version of the information that reaches the alpha motor. So then it compares this one with the sensory information, right?
Sir, do cerebellum get information about the reflexes in the spinal cord?
Yes. So reflexes that come to the spinal cord, the sensory information from the muscle, they also change the activity of the alpha motor. This change is actually signaled to the cerebellum. So the cerebellum also receives some information. Actually, the cerebellum doesn't take involved in the reflex movement, but it's other. Okay? So there are also other pathways from the cerebellum, from the spinal cord to the cerebellum. They come from the dorsal column nuclei, 28 grasp. Right? Spinal reticular pathways, spinal cord, reticular formation, from the reticular formation to the cells. Spinal olivary pathways, spinal cord, inferior olive, cells. Cerebellum also receives all of these, right? So, we have seen general function of the cerebellum, general anatomy, functional divisions, inputs, right? Actually, I didn't talk about the outputs. I'm going to talk about that, okay? But now, let's see the functional connections of different parts of the spinal, of the cerebellum with different motor commands or motor centers. Okay. Vestibulocerebellum here, flocculonodular lobe. It sends information to the vestibular nuclei. So the function is this one. Coordinates the balance and height. So the flocculonodular lobe is involved in balance and height. Any damage here causes problems with eye movements or equilibrium. Okay? So a patient that has problem with equilibrium may have problem in the cerebellum or the vestibular or vestibular apparatus. Right? Okay? So, spinocerebellum, vermis and intermediate. So from vermis, we have connections with the medial descending pathways. You remember this? Medial and lateral. I told you before. Ventral cord has two parts. Lateral, involved in the distal movements. Medial, involved in proximal movements or the axial movements, right? Pathways that come to the lateral side are called lateral pathways. Lateral system. They are involved in the movements of the distal part of the limb, like corticospinal tract, lumbrospinal tract. Pathways that come to the medial side of the ventral cord are called medial pathways, medial system. They are involved in movements of the axial muscles, proximal muscles, collectively called anti-gravity muscles. Remember? Okay, so from vermis, neurons go to the medial descending system. From the intermediate zone, information goes to the lateral descending system. I want to remind you about the map of the body. Remember that vermis had axial muscles, right? Intermediate zone has base and limbs, right? So any movements that happen in the limb is coordinated by the intermediate zone of the cell. The timing, intensity, interplay between agonist and antagonist. Remember, smooth progression from one movement to the next movement. All of these are coordinated in the intermediate zone. And all of these What happened for the axial muscles are coordinated in the vagus, right? So the lateral zone, I told you that there is no map here, map of the brain. It's connected with the cerebellum only. So the only part of the, the lateral zone of the cerebellum is only connected with the cerebral cortex, right? There is no input from the reticular formation, no input from the red nucleus, no input from the spinal cord, okay? So the only part which is connected with the lateral zone of the cerebellum is motor cortex, right? So it's important for motor planning. Remember, I told you that premotor cortex, supplementary motor cortex is mainly involved in planning of the movements. But the primary motor cortex is mainly involved in execution or performing the movements, right? So premotor cortex, supplementary motor cortex is involved in planning. Cerebellum is connected with these areas. So cerebellum helps in the planning of the movement. Any damage causes loss of the planning. When there is no planning, movements are slow because the cerebellum doesn't aid with smooth progression from one movement to the next one. Okay? So let's see now the outputs. Okay, vestibulocerebellum, flocculonodular lobe, right, has two parts, nodulus, flocculus, right? Nodulus located in the midline vestibulocerebellum, flocculus located in the lateral part, right? So, from the nodulus, fibers go to the lateral vestibular nucleus. You know, it's the origin of the lateral vestibulospinal tract, right? So lateral vestibular and spinal tract, axial muscles, limb extensors. So axial muscles are contracted, limb extensors are contracted. The result is helping with keeping the balance, right? When? During stance or watching. So when you watch and when you stand, the balance is helped by cerebellum. Which area? Nodulus, floccular, right? The balance is directly controlled by the vestibular system. You know this. Vestibular nucleus, vestibular apparatus, vestibular nucleus, vestibular spinal tract are involved in keeping the balance, right? But this motor system is held with the cerebellum receives information from the vestibular nuclei, right? Receive information from the body, compare these two, so it helps keeping the balance. Which part? Nodules. Lesion causes impairment in the equilibrium. Okay? Lateral vestibulocerebellum, flocculus, have connection with the medial vestibular nuclei. Remember, it's the origin of the medial vestibulospinal tract. It only goes down to thoracic levels and also cervical and thoracic levels, right? It's involved in the movements of the head and eyes. Remember this, right? So, this part of the cerebellum is mainly involved in eye movements and the movements of the head. Right? So, medial vestibulospinal tract controls movement of the eyes and head, especially when you have circular acceleration. I told you before. Okay? Now, the cerebellum receives information from the vestibular nuclei and also from this part of the body. So it helps coordinate movements in the eyes and neck. So, lesion here causes deficits in smooth, hirsute eye movements. Smooth, hirsute eye movements. You know hirsute eye movements? So, for example, you can see an object is moving in the air. For example, a fly, an insect is flying. Okay? So the eyes actually are locked on the object, are locked on the insect, and when it moves, the eyes also move. Okay, so this is called smooth hirsute eye movement. So anything that moves, right, in the environment, eyes are locked onto them, and eyes move with them. This is called hirsute eye movement. Okay, so this movement is controlled by the brain, but the cerebellum helps in this movement. Which area? Lateral vestibular cerebellum. Which tract?
Medial vestibular.
Medial vestibular cerebellum. So vermis also is important for smooth hirsute eye movement. Okay, so vermis is also involved. So the main area is this one, flocculus, but vermis, especially the inferior part, okay, is also involved in this one. So let's see this image. So from the flocculonodular lobe, we have some neurons that go to the lateral vestibular spinal tract. So lateral vestibular spinal tract activate limb extensors and axial muscles, right? Another pathway, so ignore this one, look at this. Spinal cerebellum, two parts, vermis and intermediate zone. Vermis is connected with fastigial nucleus, intermediate zone connected with interposed nucleus, right? So, let's see, vermis sends information to the fastigial nucleus. From here, reticular formation, lateral vestibular nucleus, so reticulospinal, vestibular spinal tract, then they are connected to the neck, trunk, proximal part of the eye. Important for balance and posture. Right? Remember again, in the vermis we have map of the axial muscles. Right? So from this part and from the vermis, information go to the fastigial nucleus to the reticular formation, vestibular nuclei. Reticulospinal, vestibular spinal. Right? Contraction of the axial muscles, proximal muscles. For what? Posture. The last one, the previous one was involved for balance, longitudinal. Here, this one is mainly involved in posture. Right? Posture, standing, sitting, lying. Okay? So all of these can be controlled by the cerebellum. Okay, so this is all very important actually for you, but now I don't talk about this, okay? They are important, the vermis is also important for Sackett. We'll see this when I talk about the examination of the cerebellum, when we have clinical problems with the cerebellum. So Sackett are actually controlled by vermis. So vermis is involved both in postural movements and Sackett. You know Sackett? Fast movements of the eyes. So now I'm looking you, next time I'm looking you, okay? So there is eye movement from you onto you, okay? So this eye movement is called saccades. So when you read, you have fast saccades between words, okay? So your eyes move from one word to another, okay? So when you see a picture, the eye moves, for example, from any point in the picture to another. Okay, so there are fast movements of the eyes on different locations of the visual image. Right? So these are called saccades. For saccades, we need the vermis. Okay, actually, saccades are controlled by the cortex. Frontal eye movement, occipital eye movement area. Superior colliculus is also important. But all of these are also connected with the cell. So, intermediate zone in the spinal cerebellum, connected with the interposed nuclei. Remember? So, from here, neurons go to different directions. Some of them go to the red nucleus, which is the origin of the reticulospinal tract. Some others go to the thalamus, ventrolateral, ventral anterior nuclei. From here, they go to the cerebral cortex, primary motor cortex, which is the origin of the corticospinal. So, cerebellum. This image, right? Which part? Intermediate zone. It has maps of the limbs and face. So it's important for movements of the hand or face. Okay? So from here, neurons go to the interposed nucleus. From interposed nucleus, some of the information go to the red nucleus, rubrospinal tract. Rubrospinal tract is involved in flexion of the elbow, wrist, and fingers. So this way, the intermediate zone can control movements in the arms. Some other information go to the thalamus, ventrolateral, ventral anterior nuclei. It's important. From here, they go to the cerebral cortex. So, again, there is a loop between the center and cerebellum. Cerebral cortex is the origin of the corticospinal tract. Corticospinal tract activates ventral horn neurons. Ventral horn neurons contract muscles of the limbs and face. Right? So the cerebellum receives information from the cortex, from the body, compare them. This way it can manipulate the information in the corticospinal tract. Got it? So it compares the intended movement with the actual movements, control movements of agonist and antagonist muscle in the distal limbs. Lesion causes ipsilateral limb movement problems. So let's see. Okay, where is there? So we have various here, sends information to the fastigial nucleus, reticular formation and vestibular nuclei go down through the reticulospinal, vestibulospinal. It can affect the axial muscles. For what? Posture. Right? And also balance, because vestibulospinal is very important. And from the intermediate zone, do we have intermediate zone here? Here. Here. Spinal cerebellum. Okay? Information goes to the interposed nuclei. From interposed nuclei, they go to the wet nucleus, rubrospinal tract, limb muscles. From the spinal cerebellum to the interposed nuclei, thalamus, cortex, corticospinal tract. Again, limb nucleus. Cerebellum, lateral zone. Dentate nucleus, right? From dentate nucleus, they go to the thalamus again, cortex. But this one is not involved in limb movements. For what? Planning of movement, I told you. Right? For planning of the movement. And a smooth progression from one movement to the next. Right? But there are also some fibers from the cerebellum to the red nucleus. Okay? So again, red nucleus is involved. But not in the magnocellular portion. Remember that red nucleus has two parts, magnocellular, parvocellular. Magnocellular is the origin of the rubrospinal tract. It's connected with the muscles. But the parvocellular is not involved in movements. It's not involved in contraction of the muscles. Parvocellular sends information to the inferior olive, right? Inferior olive sends information back to the cerebellum. So, cerebellum, red nucleus, inferior olive, cerebellum. There is a loop between the cerebellum, red nucleus, inferior olive, right?
Sir, that's why we say that the red nucleus and inferior olive has same function.
No, they don't have the same functions. But this circuit is involved in learning of movement. I will talk about this. Okay? So, from the lateral zone, information go to the red nucleus, parvocellular. From parvocellular portion to the inferior olive, from inferior olive to the cerebellum. Okay? This information is involved in learning of movement. Now let's see the mechanism. Okay? So far we have seen general function of the cerebellum, a brief look at the anatomy, right? Functional divisions, cerebellum, spinocerebellum, cerebrocerebellum, inputs to the cerebellum, output from the cerebellum, right? And the function, each part of the cerebellum is involved. So all of them actually very regular. Now let's see how the cerebellum do this. Because cerebellum is the bulk of neurons, right? Neuron sense action potential. Action potential go to the, I don't know, the cortex, right nucleus. So how this happens? So let's see that what's going on inside the cerebellum. Okay, so this is the pure physiology actually. So you know that cerebellum has cortex and nuclei. Right? The cortex has three different layers. What are the layers? Granular cell layer, Purkinje cell layer, molecular layer. Remember this from the histology? Did you have histology? So where did you see this? Anatomy. Okay, good. So, granular cell layer, Purkinje cell layer, molecular layer. So in the granular cell layer, you have granular cells. Purkinje cells are here. In the molecular layer, you don't have cells unless the stellate cells. There are some inhibitory cells. Okay? So let's see the connection between these cells. First of all, you should consider this. Purkinje cell from here makes synapses with deep cerebellar nucleus. This may be in the fastigial nucleus, in the post nucleus, or dental. Okay? So Purkinje cell releases an inhibitory neurotransmitter like that. So it always inhibits the deep cerebellar nucleus. These neurons, deep cerebellar nuclear cells, are mainly excitatory. Okay? Most of them are glutamatergic. But there are also some GABA neurons. Okay? Let's ignore the GABA neurons and stick to the glutamatergic. So, Purkinje neuron releases GABA, inhibits deep cerebellar nucleus. Deep cerebellar nucleus itself is excitatory. And we know that the main output of the cerebellum is the deep cerebellar nucleus. Okay, so there is no direct connection between the cortex of the cerebellum and out of the cerebellum. Okay, so there is no connection. First, cortex activates or inhibits the deep cerebellar nucleus. The output is from here, from the deep cerebellar nuclei to other targets. So, when I, for example, talked about this, there is no connection between vermis and the reticular formation. Connection is by way of fastigial nucleus. Also, again, here, for intermediate zone, connection happens by way of interposed nucleus. There is only one exception. Flocculonodular lobe. Okay? We don't have any nucleus for flocculonodular lobe. The nucleus is vestibular nucleus. Connection is between the cerebellum directly to the vestibular. Okay? For all other parts, neurons first go to the deep cerebellar nuclei, then from here they go out of the cerebellum. So, let's get back to this slide. So this is the main circuit, right? But we have two types of neurons coming into the cerebellum. The first one is called climbing fibers. This climbing fibers originate from inferior column. Okay? All other inputs to the cerebellum have muscle fibers. So, from the cortex, pontine nuclei, cerebellum. This is muscle fiber. Dorsal spinocerebellar tract, ventral spinocerebellar tract. They go to the cerebellum. They are muscle fiber. Right? Reticular formation, cerebellum. Right? So all of these are mossy fibers. So first let's see mossy fibers. First let's see the climbing fibers. Climbing fibers originate from the inferior rib. They first go to the deep cerebellar nucleus, activate it. A second branch go upward in the molecular layer. It activates the dendrites of the Purkinje cell. Right? Purkinje cell inhibits deep cerebellar nucleus. So, when inferior auditory nucleus fibers come into the cerebellum, they first activate the nucleus here, then by way of the Purkinje cell, they inhibit the cell. Right? So first we have excitation, then we have inhibition. Right? The same also happens for the mossy fiber. The mossy fiber first activate the deep cerebellar nuclear cell, then we activate granule cells. Granule cells send the axons to the molecular layer. It generates parallel fibers. Parallel fibers activate Purkinje cell. Purkinje cell inhibits the deep nuclear cell. Right? So again, you will have first excitation, then inhibition. Let's see this one. Both the climbing fibers and mossy fibers first activates deep nuclear cells, then by way of other neurons, mainly Purkinje cell, they inhibit. So, any input to the cerebellum first excites the neuron, then inhibits. Right? So this is the microcircuit of neurons inside the cerebellum. What's the physiological importance of this? Okay? So the same figure is also shown in the Guyton book. It's like this, so I ignore this, okay? So, climbing fibers and mossy fibers activate Purkinje cells, right? But Purkinje cells generate two different types of spikes or action potential. Some of them are called simple spike or simple action potential, others are called complex spikes or complex action potentials. So, let's get back to the Purkinje neuron here. This is the Purkinje neuron. I told you it's inhibitory. If you put an electrode inside the Purkinje neuron and record the action potential, okay? Action potentials which is recorded here can be simple or complex. Simple happens when mossy fibers activate the Purkinje neurons. But complex action potential happens if climbing fiber activates the neuron. So let's see the simple and complex one. This is the simple action potential. These. Okay? So you can see only one line here, but actually it's like this. Depolarization, repolarization, hyperpolarization. If you compact it in time, it looks like this. Okay? So you can see only a line, but it has actually two lines. Upward, downward, that are very close together. Right? So you have depolarization, repolarization. Depolarization happens by activation of sodium channels, repolarization by activation of potassium channels. But if climbing fibers activate the Purkinje cells, they generate complex cells. It's like this. Okay, so first, the resting membrane potential goes upward. There are some oscillation in the resting membrane potential, and then the resting membrane potential comes down. Okay, but when the resting membrane potential goes upward, then you will have some action potentials like this. Okay, so you will have several action potentials on the top of the resting membrane potential. Okay, so you will have two phases. One phase is like this. You can see this one is the resting membrane potential. When the climbing fibers activate the Purkinje cells, the resting membrane potential will show some oscillations. Right? Above the oscillation, you will have this oscillation happens by calcium inward movements. So calcium goes into the cell and generates some oscillation. Above this, you will have opening of sodium channels and potassium channels. So you will have the standard action potential. Okay? So complex spike happens when inferior oligonucleus activates the polynucleus. Let's go on. Okay. So